And what is it on?
We stream on YouTube, but we also air locally on Comcast, Drexel
Comcast.
University TV.
And it's called what?
Reelblack.
Okay.
I'll make sure that.
Anytime you're ready.
Hi, I'm Nichelle Nichols, and when I'm in this quadrant, I watch Reelblack on Comcast. You should too.
Thank you.
That he was really taking care of the characters, intended to take good care of the characters, and to do honor to the show, and at that, and he took me to lunch on the set at the commissary, and afterwards he said, "You know, I'm so excited." He said, "I didn't know what you looked like after all this time." He said, "You could play." He said, "I wish I had something for you in the film." And I said, "Well, why don't you let me play her grandmother?" He says, "No, I was thinking about her mother." And so I said, "No, 300 years from now, this is what grandmas are going to look like. As a matter of fact, this is what they look like." And we had a wonderful time. And he subsequently called and talked to everyone and met with them to give the original stars the honor and the respect of not just doing it without your. And he talked in depth about the character and what made the character tick, what we had developed. And that day that I was there, the young woman, Zoe Saldana, was not scheduled to work. And he called, knowing that I was coming, he called her in under pretext of working, so she was all in uniform, and she came aboard. And because he didn't tell me, but she told me. So when she came walking in, and she walked past me, and she went, and she just goes, "No way! No way!" And we had a I stayed much longer than I had planned to, and we had a wonderful time together. And she is one of the most beautifully exquisite young women I've ever met, and with the wonderful cheekbones and and a serious demeanor with a nice sense of humor and a classic lady. And I thought, "Ooh, her is in good hands." And I think that everyone who talked with him had hoped that that he would do cameos. But in the final analysis, this writer strike went on, and it became too unwieldy to try to write for any number of, even one other person. But he called, which was so incredibly classy of him. He called to explain to me that that the sets were now broken down, each one as they left, and there was absolutely no time left and nothing he could do about it. But that he was excited about having met me, and thanked me for my being gracious. I thanked him for his being gracious. And he said, "But I'm going to look forward to working with you. I'm going to find something for you. I'm going to find something that I'm doing." And I'm like, "Ooh, yes." Okay. So that was my meeting. But so I feel I feel the prequel to what we did is in good hands, and I'm looking forward to seeing it and expect it to be. The only person that was from the original cast was Leonard Nimoy, and the story centers around him, and there's a young man playing him, and there's Leonard Nimoy. I don't know whether he's playing 300 years from now or what is, because he's keeping that close to his vest, and I would be too. So that's what that's all I know about that. But I'm looking forward to seeing it. Yes.
Ma'am?
Yes, please.
Go ahead.
My aunt from the Fixin's Hideout, we do a podcast, and
First, I want to thank you for your contribution to everything that we know about regal black characters in
Thank
television and movies.
Thank
I
you.
really appreciate your body of work.
Thank you.
And I'm so excited that you're on Heroes.
Yes, I
Really
am
great
too.
thing.
I am too.
Could you tell us a little bit about your experience with Heroes?
I was making 3 independent films, all within a few months of one another. And I was going from the first one called The Torturer, which is an incredible film, to Los Angeles to stay for 3 days and go to my next one in Phoenix. One was in Denver, the next was in Phoenix. Totally different. This Bitter Earth, which totally different characters. And I was looking forward to both of them. And when I got to Los Angeles, or before I got to Los Angeles, my agent called and said there was a 3rd film that was a guest star role, and starring in the other 2. And he says, I think it's a wonderful script. He sent me the script. And again, a really totally different script, totally different character, I mean. And it's a grandmother. I play Jasmine Guy's mom, and the grandmother to this young son who is battling with his sexuality. And he's the star of the football team, and he's discovering his something's wrong, and he's fighting it like crazy. And this is the role that I'm playing. And I play this feisty old grandma who's sexy as all get out and used to be a jazz singer. You know, I just, I put that in. And the director loved it. And so, you know, I have the jewelry and the big earrings and everything, but classy at the same time, you know. And he loves her so much. He has a big influence on her. And so I came in to do the 2 days with that, have another day, and go, and I get there, my agent says, oh, by the way, you've got an interview on Thursday. I said, I'm leaving for Phoenix on Thursday. He said, yes, but this is for a TV series. I said, I can't do it. He says, yes, you're going to do it. I have it at 10 o'clock in the morning. You don't leave until 2. The limo can take it, bring it back, la-da-da-da-da. So I ended up, okay, you know, I probably won't get it anyway. That's, you know, whatever. And I went on, and he said, Heroes. And I'm going, Heroes, isn't that a new TV series, you know? And I had seen something, I was so fascinated with it. I go in, I read for it, and I forget about it, and there's this whole coterie of people there, and I went, uh-oh, this is bigger than a breadstick. This is, this is, oh, yeah, this is network, you know? And that's exactly what it was. And Tim Crane, the creator, the creator was there, and all the writers were there, and co-producers and associate producers, and la-di-da. And so I sat down, and they said, would you sit here? And it's actually a scene that you'd be standing up. But I was glad to sit down. Before them, I said, oh, is this the hot seat? And they laughed, you know. And so I put a little sense of humor in this role. Again, a grandmother, and I played an entirely different grandmother, but still a feisty old broad, you know. And I left, and I thanked them all very much, and got out of there and went to the airport and forgot about it. And when I got to Phoenix, I'm shooting 1 or 2 days later, and somebody comes up to me and says, oh, I heard you're going on Heroes. And I said, what are you talking about? How do you know about it? I just did that yesterday. I saw those people yesterday. And then I realized that people are talking, you know, there are Star Trek fans everywhere in the world, in every walk of life. And so the next thing I know, the TV guys that are there, and I said, well, it's common knowledge, and I didn't know it was one of their things not to talk about it. They hadn't told me that, because they hadn't told me I had it yet. And so I called my agent and he said, oh, my agent called me and said, hey, guess what? And I said, yeah, I got the role. He said, how did you know? And I said, a fan told me. And he says, oh, of course, Crane called him. He was livid. He said, and of course they had not told me, because they hadn't even sent me the contract yet, which is in the contract. And they let me have it anyway. And I got there for my first day of shooting, and he was a little put on, and they said, do you know what it means to hire a person from Star Trek, one of the stars of Star Trek? He said, it is complete and immediate communication. He says, well, yes, and he says, everybody is sworn to secrecy around here. I said, do you have a secretary? He said, several. I said, they're Star Trek fans. Do you have a wife? No, I said, do you have a son? Yes. Do you have a daughter? Yes. Niece? Nephew? Do you have a wife? A sister? And he said, I said, they're all Star Trek fans. And I said, the first duty of a Star Trek fan is to call 10 Star Trek fans who then call 10 Star Trek anywhere in the country and world. And I said, I found out about it before my agent called me. And the next thing there was an affiliate at my shooting schedule interrupting my movie. And so I didn't know that I was committed to secrecy. And so I told him yes. And he said, I'll be darned. I said, by the way, who's your messenger service to get your scripts typed? It's out before the ink dries. And so he went, he said, he was so nonplussed. And he'd never really had that degree of exposure. But they were very happy with what I was doing. And so I've just been called back. I hope this is not supposed to be secret for the second season, for the next season, rather this will be the third season, or the end of the second, whatever it is. I'm going back for, and I'm a recurring character, and hopefully I'll join the whole cast. But if not, it's been a wonderful experience, and I love the work, and the cast is superb.
The ratings went skyrocketing as soon as everybody knew you were going to be on the show, because we were just so excited.
Yes.
We knew that you were going to be on it.
Write them and tell them that, because they don't believe me. Well, they do know that they have a large contingency of Star Trek fans who have written them. And Takei had done a role, as you know, earlier in the year, but somehow it didn't get all the pre-excitement. I guess they were kind of kept it, and he knew to keep it quiet, so he was putting out the word, and I hadn't talked to him. So mine was, I guess, a little different.
We have about 5 more minutes, so
Okay.
next question?
Yes, I'm sorry.
All right. Hi, Rich Watson, popcultureshock.com.
And I'll try to be short and get some answers.
It's a great honor to meet you.
Thank you.
Two-part question. I wanted to hope you could talk a little bit about your current work. I know you've got a movie out now called Lady Magdalene, which you were a producer on. Co-executive producer. Okay, I was hoping you would talk about your experience as an executive producer on that movie, and also I hope you would talk about how you pick your roles these days.
I look at the writing and at the script, and you can never tell what's going to happen when it gets translated onto the screen. But I thought it had a great potential because I play a madam. Again, a totally different role. And the greatest motivation of an actor is to get to stretch and not to, you know, you can play one role forever, but to stretch into many roles, and to bring a sense of who the character is and to instill in that character, whoever it is, some sense of dignity and why, something involving the person that makes it more than a cardboard character, right? And there's more to Lady Magdalene, Maggie, than be just a madam. And so I thought that was interesting enough to get involved with, and so that's why I came on board. And I liked the writer's other works, and but this was a first picture for him, and he's still working on distribution, but it's gotten a lot of play on the internet and his website. Yeah.
Yes, my name is Raymond Tyler from Reelblack TV. A pleasure and an honor to meet you.
Thank you.
I have two questions. One is, could you talk to us a little bit about being the first person to be involved with an interracial kiss on national TV? And two, did you make a conscious effort to avoid the blaxploitation era?
I made a conscious effort to jump in it feet first. Because we did not at that time refer to it or even think of it as black exploitation. It was an opportunity for black writers, for black directors, for black stars, for black actors behind the scenes to get experience, to get known, and Gordon Parks had done The Learning Tree, and my son happened to play Gordon Parks, Newt, the star of that, Kyle Johnson. And I saw what could happen from there, and he was the one who really opened the door for black people to have an opportunity in filmdom, where it was going to be seen.
How have things changed since then?
Unfortunately, what the studios were very interested in which became black exploitation, was the seedier side. And no one saw it coming, what you were doing, because as actors, you're playing a role, you know, not being yourself. You're playing a role. And before you knew it, that's all that was out there, you know. So I did one film, a madam, and that was 40-some years ago, you know, and I didn't play another one until now, and many other roles in between, but no more black exploitation films, because after that one, all I saw was the opportunity to show, women to take off their clothes, black men to leave their wives and have bastard children running around, to be a dope artist and to demean the black race, and never seeing while that exists, never seeing the other side of us, of who we are. The diamond, faceted persons that we are, like anyone else, any other culture. And I resented it deeply, and so I turned down opportunities, and they wouldn't cast me in anything else. And so I went back to theater, my first love, until things started moving around, and then 10 years later, well, not 10 years later, in 70 or 71, right after Star Trek, the conventions, Star Trek conventions, which were fan-produced and organized, came along. And so that, and there was one somewhere every weekend in the world. It spread like wildfire. And so we stayed in the public eye. And that took 10 years later to the 6 major motion pictures of Star Trek. And the other question you asked me was about the interracial kiss.
Yes.
We were always looking to the next script because one was better than the other. What I was not looking to is great scenes being constantly cut in rewrites. There was a reason for that, and for that reason I wasn't terribly thrilled. And I was getting offers now in theater, and one was an interest in my one-woman show to go to Broadway, and that's when the major motion pictures came of Star Trek, and so it kept postponing that. Anyway, back to the kiss. I went in, it was the end of the first season, and I went into Gene Roddenberry and told him that I was getting these offers since this was after the first season, and that I wanted to get back to my first love, which is musical theater and live theater. And he said, "You can't do that. Do you know what I'm trying to do? Don't you see?" And he said, "Wait a minute, this is Friday. Take the weekend and think about it." And the next night, on Saturday, I was a celebrity guest at I think it was an NAACP fundraiser, and I attended, and I'm at the dais, and people are coming in, and one of the producers or organizers of the event came to me and said, "Miss Nichols, there's someone who really wants to meet you, is a big fan." And I said, "Oh, certainly." And I got up and turned around into the face of Dr. Martin Luther King.
Dr. King was a Trekkie. Wow.
I could not breathe. I mean, you know that expression, waiting to exhale? And he smiled, and when he laughed, I think that's when I kind of began to exhale. And he said, "I'm the fan, and my whole family is a fan of yours, and my little children." And then he says, "And I want to congratulate you on the quality of your work and the quality of the character." And so forth. And I said, "Well, thank you, Dr. King. I'm going to miss my co-workers." And he said, "What you talking about?" And I said, "I'm leaving the show after the first season." And I told Gene Roddenberry. He says, "You can't do that. You cannot. You cannot do that." And I wanted to say, "What you talking about, Doctor?" And he said, "Don't you understand what that man is doing? He's put you in the command crew. You're fourth in command. You can't abdicate this. You're out there on a 5-year mission where no man or woman has gone before." He says, "You have changed the face of television forever. You cannot do that. For the first time, the whole world is seeing us as we should be seen, not just as beautiful entertainers and domestics. He said, "For the first time, there's a whole human being there, beyond the beauty, beyond the talent, the musical talent, in science, and it's not a mistake he made you chief communications officer." And I thought right then it used its sense. Yeah, I get to tell everybody where to go. But I listened fascinated to him. And he said, "Do you know how important this show is? This is the only television show that my wife Coretta and I allow our little children to stay up and watch. And he said, this is so important. I said, and this is right in the middle of the civil rights marches and programs. And I said, when it began, I really wanted, he says, no, we don't want you there. We have enough marchers. We have enough famous people. We need you on that great communicator. We need you on that screen. Because this is 300 years from now. That's telling the world it already is. We are there. What happened between now and then begins with our marches. What happens there is you. You cannot leave. I could not leave. And I went back to tell Gene Roddenberry, and I told him what Dr. King said. Gene Roddenberry is 6'3", hatchet face, big ex-cop, motorcycle cop, World War II fighter pilot. And he sat there at his desk, and he looked up at me, and he said, thank God for Dr. Martin Luther King. Somebody knows what I'm trying to achieve here. And a tear ran down his thing. I almost lost it. I said, thank you, Gene, and I got out of there. And he was a dear friend, and he saw to it from then on that less of my, and I never complained, that my scenes were protected more.
We have time for one more question.
And I'd like to say, before we go there, I did not leave, and I never looked back. I was very grateful for that opportunity. And when Dr. King's kids grew up, I got to meet all but one. And each one told me separately and equally. You know, we didn't believe our daddy when he came home. Remember that? Like, and told us he met Lieutenant Uhura. I said, did you know who your father was? He said, yeah, he was out getting beat up and telling people. And so I thought that, and then it hits you again in retrospect, hearing them say that Dr. King was so far ahead of himself because he realized that images are so powerful, and the television is educational whether we like it or not, you know, and there's a sad thing that's happening in television, that with the technology of immediate communication with the network, that a very powerful negative is being used and turned on us. And it's very important that what you people are doing and what you people are doing is so powerful and so necessary, because we've got to get those young minds before, because they have so glamorized the gangs. It's all you hear. The first thing you hear on the news every night is a shooting, is the gangs, and then seeing them, you know, walking. Yeah, and the last thing I saw was one walking around talking about this is in one of the schools where the fight broke out between Latinos and blacks, and the cops came in and they laughed at him. And they're looking at a Latino, beautiful guy, beautiful guy. And he said, don't matter to us, young student, about 17, I guess, high school. And he said, don't matter to us. He said, they're there. He said, they turned their back, we're someplace else. He said, we're going to fight. We're going to kill each other. And I'm going, they're putting this on television? You know, how many thousands of young people's minds are being affected, and it looks glamorous. It's vicious, it's terrible, and it's despicable. Yes.
Yes, last question.
Brandon Easton, UBC Magazine. This is a great honor to meet you.
Thank you.
I had a question. You just mentioned images and media, and I was wondering, is there anything that that you're into, what you've seen recently that particularly inspired you, or that you think is very positive for people to watch? Or
Yes, that I've seen. Oh, I thought you meant that I'm doing.
Well, both.
Well, the film Torture has to do with our role in torture in Iraq, and it's a 3-character play that is very, very powerful and brings into focus just who are we, and how do we handle ourselves with the world scene, and how are we perceived now as before 8 years ago. It's just diminished, and that has an effect on society, you know. And the role that I play in This Bit of Earth, she's a powerful teacher, music teacher and film teacher, to young people, and she stands tall until this young woman who's seen her father murdered in front of her has turned negative, and they have a battle, and I won't give you any more, but it's very inspiring because the end of it, each one of these films has the end of it is uplifting, as well as the other little film that I'm doing.
Okay.
I'll think of the name and I'll yell it out.
Okay, so
Take your photos now.
I'm going to begin right here with, okay, this is from Nichelle. I was chatting with someone when a man approached and said, Nichelle, there is someone who would like to meet you. He's a big fan of Star Trek and of Uhura. I turned to greet this fan and found myself gazing upon the face of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I was stunned, and I remember thinking, whoever that fan is, he just is going to have to wait. The man introduced us, and imagine my surprise when his first words uttered by Dr. King were, yes, I am that fan, and I wanted to tell you how important your role is. It seems Nichelle was just debating the very night before about whether or not she should leave because she didn't feel her role on Star Trek was very...
section of the program. And I want to say that this sister right here, she paved the way for just like the ultimate, just strong, intelligent, beautiful black woman who could hold her own against any man. That's what I feel. Who could hold her own against any man. And I think about in the 70s, and I'm a youngin' myself, so I guess I was watching the reruns too. But I think about going into the 70s, thinking about Patti LaBelle and the Bluebells and that whole style they were rocking. Hey, we know where it comes from. So we're gonna continue on. Miss Nichelle Nichols, most famous for her role as Lieutenant Uhura on the original Star Trek television series, is an accomplished dancer and singer. Performing since the age of 14, she was hired by the great Duke Ellington to choreograph and perform a ballet for one of his musical suites and finish the tour as his lead singer. Nichols has performed throughout the U.S., Canada, and Europe, including a stint as a guest artist with Lionel Hampton's band. She has co-starred in 6 blockbuster Star Trek films, performed in her own one-woman show, toured Broadway, recorded a CD, wrote an autobiography and sci-fi novel, and has a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. A star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Currently, she stars on the hit television series, Heroes. Who watches Heroes? Yes. So please welcome me. Please join me in welcoming Brother Yumi Odom to present the prestigious Pioneer Award to famed television legend and trailblazer, Miss Nichelle Nichols.
Good evening, everybody. I need to ask the executive board to come to the front. Ken Brown, Maurice Waters, and hopefully Stephanie Branford. Which, yeah, she can't come in. Hopefully. Those who know me know I'm not impressed by very much, but I have been impressed today, so I'm going to say very few words. But we do want to acknowledge Ms. Nichols' success, continued success, and we do truly honor you. But with this award, well, when she comes in, we'll continue, but I do want to read what's on the award, and it's very little because we wanted to put so much more on it. But it says, the Temple University Pan-African Studies Community Education Program ECBOC Pioneer Award presented to Nichelle Nichols for her lifetime achievement and contributions to the television, film, sci-fi, and comic book industries, presented at the 7th Annual East Coast Black Age of Comics Convention, ECBOC. And his brother Joseph Wheeler says, ECBOC forever. Thank you.
This is so beautiful. Please take your seats and so I can see you all. And I'm truly honored. Throughout the years, you sometimes receive awards just for being there. This will set high among the most important awards that I have received. One for my work when I took a year off of my career to change the face of the space program and the astronaut program. And to have been told a few years later by a young woman who was just in medical school when that happened, that she was 9 years old when Star Trek came on, and she said, I'm going to fly someday in the stars. And because Uhura is there. And when I received the contract and unsuccessfully recruited the first African American men and women and the first women for the astronaut corps, she was in medical school and she said, I know I'm going to fly now. And 4 years later, she became the first woman of color to be selected as an astronaut for the Space Shuttle program and became my very, very close friend ever since. So this is deep to my heart, and I thank you so very, very much. Shall I just continue now?